Good day, everyone. It's Dan Raker from ConnectPress. I want to welcome you to our webinar today brought to us by Anarch and Geometric, Surviving OEM Supply Chain Mandates, what's really going on with MBE in top-tier companies. We have a great program put together. You can see the panelists on the screen in front of you, and we'll get to the meat of the program in a moment. I want to thank Anarch for sponsoring and Geometric for sponsoring and Key Safety Systems for joining the panel and all the effort that was put into getting this program ready to go. Some housekeeping. You have a question panel on your GoToWebinar control space. If you have questions that evolve during the course of the webinar, please feel free to type them in. We are trying to reserve a few minutes at the end of the program to get to a number of questions, and we'll do our best to do that. The way to make them happen and get on the list is to type in your questions. Also, the webinar is being recorded in its entirety. So if you want to go back and look in more detail at some of the slides in the PowerPoint deck or share this with your colleague, give us a few hours after the close of the webinar, and we will post the recorded version in the various ConnectPress communities, and you're welcome to log in there with your account and view the webinar on demand. I'm going to now get things started by inviting the panelists to say hello. Doug, Marcus, are you there with us?
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome, folks. Why don't you go ahead and do some introductions?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Doug Halliday with Anarch Corporation. I'm a Director of Business Development here at Anarch, and I'm the representative automotive guy today. 10 years ago, I would have been on the, well, I was with one of the leading automotive OEMs and would have been on the other end of the supply chain quandary. So really looking forward to this dialogue today.
Hi, good morning. This is Ashish Deshmukh from Geometric. I am the Director of Enterprise Solutions from the Geometric side, and I've been with Geometric for the last 4.5 years, and prior to that I was with a leading PLM provider, so I've dwelt in this area of PLM and CAD for the last 15 plus years. Welcome and thank you for joining.
And Marcus.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. So my name is Marcus Richter. I'm working for Key Safety Systems since almost 20 years. And since 5 years I am globally responsible for all CAD activities inside Key Safety. In this function, I was the major driver for several initiatives. For example, our journey into model-based definition. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our MBD evolution.
Great. So I also want to say thank you. It's Dan again. I want to say thank you to all the folks who are on the line as attendees and who registered for the webinar. One of the things that we've been doing lately as part of registration for a good webinar topic is asking a whole bunch of extra questions that we turn into a mini non-scientific survey, but just to get a feel for, who's on the line, what people are doing, what they know, what they don't know, what they're interested in. And we completely realize that requires you to spend a few more minutes out of your day clicking through the survey when you're registering, and I really want to say thank you for doing that. I want to share a few results, and Doug and Ashish, please jump in here. Some of these are just quick summaries of what we found in the survey registration data. Doug?
Yeah, Dan, this is very interesting to us in that we always hope that we'll have people in leadership positions and decision-making positions, strong influencers and so forth. We have a number of people from a wide variety of great great companies whose names are household names, really, and in a lot of really important roles. Product development managers, directors of engineering systems, product marketing managers, senior manufacturing people. So welcome, everyone.
And, you know, when we were looking for the right title for this program, and Doug has already said, you know, his background is automotive, and we will be selecting examples primarily from automotive today and demonstrating some of the MBE, MBD activities today. But we want to make sure that, and as we said in our original invite, you know, this is a universal problem throughout large supply chains where various levels of hierarchy, own, control, command, what's happening or should be happening with the IP, the intellectual property, or with the actual detail information. And sure enough, when we surveyed and had people join, we have a very strong representative of OEM suppliers, Tier 1, Tier 2, but we have, as Doug will say here, you know, a good smattering, if not healthy representation from lots of other areas.
Yeah, for example, in the automotive space, we've seen Continental and Faurecia. PACCAR is a part of the registered for this. Allison Transmission. You're looking at the aerospace and defense contractors. We've seen GE Aviation, Pratt & Whitney, U.S. Air Force is registered. On the consumer goods side, the likes of Kohler and Husqvarna, and even looking at universities and labs, we have Los Alamos joining us. So we've got really a great cross-section of manufacturing, not just in the U.S., of course, but globally. An awesome group of participants today.
Great. And then, again, thank you for taking the time to fill out the surveys. I'll remind you that it's not scientific or necessarily statistically accurate, but this is a quick representation of who, you know, raised their hand and said, we're interested in this topic and need to know more or can contribute or want to know more. So, Doug, what do you think of where people are on the bleeding edge or leading edge of this activity?
This was fascinating to us and very helpful, too, because it allowed us to adjust the content that we'll be sharing today, sort of comprehending where people are. You know, we see a large number, 47% of respondents who are just getting started in this journey. And I think, in particular, what Marcus is going to have to say today about that is going to be very, very helpful to you. Even 20% were brave enough to say, well, what's MBE? So, you know, that tells us that we need to make sure that we define our terms, and certainly if you have questions, ask those questions.
How familiar are you with the MBE Maturity Capability Model, available on modelbasedenterprise.org?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really critical when you're taking this journey. Actually, trying to really assess your MBE maturity is absolutely critical at the beginning of the journey. And there are 66% what we see really want to know what is this MBE Maturity Capability Model. And you will see glimpses of that during the presentation. We're going to cover that. But you're welcome to contact us, and Geometric and ANAR can really help you with the assessment and really help you craft that journey for you.
Yeah, we'll cover a little bit more of this during the bulk of the presentation, too.
And I'll say it's not a very well-kept secret where we designed some of these registration surveys. Sometimes we like to put in a ringer of a question, like almost purposely put in an advanced phrase or something that many people would not know about, with the express purpose of getting people to say, I don't know what that is. Maybe I better show up and learn about it. So again, thank you for taking part in those things. In the supply chain hierarchy, which one of the following best describes your organization's role? From we control everything to, we're down at the far end of the supply chain and we're the flea on the tail of the dog. So Ashish, what do you think here?
Yeah, so I would say, the 29% who really are in control of the data or the master data and really driving that are really critical to the MBE transformation. You know, it's really the place where the data set is residing, and that's from where the data is going to get harvested, and then derivative documents will be created. Nevertheless, the rest of the 12 and 22% are equally important because they are the part of the consumer community. And actually, it's important for them that they get the right information at the right time and with the right content so that they can take the right decisions and really make the value chain effective and efficient.
You know, Marcus, I know you're on the line and watching. I don't mean to necessarily put you on the spot, but you know, where would you say, so we put in context some of your presentation later on as one of the key users, you know, where are you on this list or this hierarchy?
So I would say we are at the 29%, so we control the master data, and well, we cannot directly dictate standards to our suppliers, but let's say we keep the master data and yeah, and dictate at least that the format files or the file formats of our tool makers and so on.
Yeah, you know, there's a famous old story that goes back about 15, 18 years now, where Caterpillar was a huge customer of PTC, and at what point when Caterpillar was addressing some of these issues, and they were really challenged by pushing their supply chain to be more digital and to share data that way. At one point, PTC designated them as a reseller of PTC software and said, you know, if you're really going to take the message, take it all the way out there. And the supply chain, to some extent, rebelled because they say, well, you know, we're far enough on the supply chain that sometimes we use SolidWorks files, sometimes we use PTC files, sometimes we use this or that. And I think we'll address that a little bit more in this webinar as well, of why the solution that's being discussed here basically is able to handle that problem, even though somebody may, you know, be in the dictator role at the top of the hierarchy. So our supply chain data sharing needs and activity are ad hoc, like serving many masters, complete mess. What do you think here?
Well, interesting responses for sure. You know, I can tell you, looking at my history in the automotive space, that we started very ad hoc and organic, but hopefully ended up a little bit better organized than that. But I will tell you that if I had to go back and do things today, I would do them very differently than I did when I was in that role. I also love the fact that 15% admitted the fact that things are a complete mess. But you know, that is the kind of frustration that a lot of firms feel, because particularly if I'm a tier 1 supplier and I find myself having to address an OEM mandate on one side, but on the other end satisfy my own supply chain, it can be very challenging, and I know Ashish is going to talk to that you know, shortly.
Okay. Ashish.
Yeah, so you know, based on our experience in the automotive and the automotive supply chain, really, if you look at what are the trends today that are driving the entire value chain. So the 3 things that we thought, you know, is a common thread across the automotive supply chain. It's innovation, and if you see OEMs are talking about that the innovation is going to happen in a non-traditional ways and a non-traditional places. So it's not going to be the car companies doing the innovation. It's probably their supply chain. It's probably companies that we've not thought of, you know, Googles of the time and Apples and all these guys are doing the innovation, and they will be really bringing that innovation to the automotive world and really transforming the automotive industry. If you had the opportunity to visit CES 2016, you would have seen a lot of startups over there. A lot of startups who are really doing a great job in bringing disruptive technologies to the automotive world and the other worlds, of course. And they will be playing absolutely a key role in defining that innovation for the OEMs in automotive OEMs. The second trend that we consistently see is the complexity. Now, there is an unprecedented level of complexity of product as well as complexity of the ecosystem. I mean, if you think about a supplier today, if the supplier is able to work collaboratively with the OEM and, of course, with their peers and competitors, and if they are able to bring products quicker to the market on different platforms and in different regions, then really they are showing to the automotive community that they are flexible, they are nimble, and they will be the preferred suppliers. So really, it's absolutely critical that they embrace the digital transformation, because that brings in the nimbleness. And digital transformation going forward is not all about IT managing it. It has to be a core strategy. It has to be a part of your core business strategy. And that's going to really effectively help the supplier community bring the speed to the market. The third trend that we consistently see is which you've seen some of the examples in the recent past, is the rising supplier responsibility for quality. So if you see, automotive makers are basically adopting global platforms and global assembly places, and really if suppliers the chances that they're financially getting exposed to any product failures. And we've really seen in the recent past some unfortunate incidences where Takata airbag recall really had a huge impact on the entire automotive industry. So really, if you see these three trends, these we believe are going to be, driving the automotive industry and the automotive, the entire value chain over there. So digital transformation and NDE transformation, I believe, is one of the critical things to really help make this industry nimble and fast. So we could go to the next slide, Dan.
There you go.
All right, so some of the implications that we can see on the supply chain. So if you look at a typical supply chain, the tier one suppliers have grown with acquisitions, and that really puts a very important challenge in front of them. That's the interoperability challenge. That's a challenge internal to their enterprises, as well as they interact with their OEMs and their downstream supply chain. So, and with that sort of a challenge, they have the pressures from the OEMs to really hold the timelines, where they may not have enough information to really work with. They may not, they may not have the right data set to work with. In the sense there may be some discontinuities in the data set that has been sent out, and this, there won't be any syncing of the data set. All these things could lead to quality problems, as we've seen in the previous slide. And really, it is important that the suppliers have the right data at the right time to make the right decisions, and keep the entire ecosystem cost-effective as well. So we can see some of the in the next slides. I guess Doug is going to speak about more into this topic about what are the possibilities of really solving these things.
Yeah, Ashish, I mean, what you covered on that previous slide, I mean, it's really critical to understand the impact of things like global platforms and being directed to work by customers, for example, with particular IT vendors. The challenges are like never before. And that's why when we look at traditional practices, they just don't cut it any longer. Back in the day, I guess I'll include myself in this, cross-functional supply chain collaboration was very much impeded by difficult to interpret and misaligned product definition. And I'll venture to say it still is the condition in many places. Where obviously what we need and what we believe companies like Key Safety Systems and many others who are on this model-based enterprise journey now, they're fully integrated or moving to a fully integrated and collaborative environment. It's founded on detailed 3D product definition, the definition that's in context and shared across the entire extended enterprise. When we look at, again, back in the day, separate and incomplete and error-prone 2D drawings, rather than fully integrated 3D masters, here again, major challenges. So where we're headed as an industry is a single data master or data set, at least by functional area, where we're looking at all relevant 3D and needed product information, whether that's 3D attributes from the PLM environment, information such as MBOM, information from the ERP environment, etc. And that's what we're doing with the geometric team, and that's what companies like Key Safety Systems are focused on. Proprietary, complex, and costly clients were, and still are in many cases, required to share data and used to share data with downstream departments and suppliers. But as she said, that's hardly agile. That's hardly flexible. What's required and where we're focused are ubiquitous clients. The Adobe free reader that virtually everyone has on their computer, as well as HTML. And we'll be talking a little bit about that. When we look at, in the past, numerous and costly interpretation errors leading to quality issues, well, both reuse and making sure that we are focused on an automated approach that yields higher quality and at lower costs is where we're going. So as we move into this next slide now, we talked about the model-based organization and ways of assessing where you are as a company. And as Ashish said, getting started in this process is very helpful to telling you where to go. This is not necessarily a linear process, but if we look, for example, at level 1, if you're at level 1, your 2D drawings are the master. And as we proceed from level 1 to level 2, in level 2, the 3D data may be the associated with the drawing, but the 2D is still the master there. So one of the key questions is, how do you get to a model-centric environment? How do you get to level 3? And that's where a lot of companies stumble. The reason they stumble is the accuracy of the incorporation of 3D content, especially product manufacturing information, or FP&A, if you will, into those models. And then, of course, there's the association of other necessary information. So this proceeds through level 4. By the time we get to level 4, 3D is the master, not just the authority, if you will. By the time we get to level 5 and level 6, we are truly addressing that downstream component that Ashish talked about, and we are fully operational with the supply chain. Now, Dana, as a reminder, there are a bit of a build-in here. So, in the early stages, we're really looking at a 2D engineering drawing focus. As we move beyond level 3, we're moving to 3D model-based definition, which is the enabler for 3D MBE in both manufacturing and supplier processes. Why might you ask, are so many companies stuck on level 2? The answer is very simple. Just hit the build again. It's because MBD data authored in the native CAD environment is not the same as MBE data downstream, and we hope to show you some of that as we proceed today. So I took a little bit of time with those 2 slides, but I think they're important to understand where we're going.
So isn't this the question? We're trying to answer some question and give some insight to the audience. What about what is the MBE capability assessment, right? So this is the chart.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I might also add that the Automotive Industry Action Group is also working on an assessment tool. It's based on this, but a little more focused on details of what you need to do to incorporate GD&T, for example, successfully in the model.
And I don't think I was just thinking, I don't think everybody has to be at level 6, right? Is that a need, or it's based on what you really what's your business process and where you are today and where you need to be the most efficient?
What we see with our customers and our joint customers is that we may have certain companies who are moving along very well in the engineering release environment, for example, but are not really ready to pursue process planning or quality and inspection. So as I said earlier, it's not necessarily a linear process.
Excellent.
Next to the slide, Dan, please. Yeah, so this picture attempts to depict the core of what we're talking about here. Now, on the upper left, I'm sure many of you will recognize your environment or similar environments where there are a number of sources of data. As I said earlier, there's very seldom, if ever, a single source of the truth. So the question becomes the white space. How do I associate that 3D CAD information and that 3D PMI information that I've incorporated? If I'm looking at a model-based definition, how do I associate those things effectively so that I can move to some of the kinds of workflows that we just described? So, we think of model-based enterprise really as being an umbrella where we're looking at reuse of 3D engineering data to generate necessary information for manufacturing documents, and that certainly involves and is aimed at sharing the wealth, if you will, from model-based definition. But we're also seeing our customers move to model-based manufacturing and model-based tooling as examples, and there are others we could put on this list. So that's really where we're focused. And so what we want to do is transition into how do we do that? And
so you're not really replacing your existing engineering IT, right? I mean,
not at all. We're augmenting what's already in place. We're allowing companies to achieve much greater value from the investment they've already made.
So essentially, we're talking about effective collaboration at a lower total cost of ownership.
Well said. I wish I'd said that.
And another piece that comes up when you look at this slide, I think when you go back to the earlier slide of people progressing from level 2 to 3 to 4, et cetera, some of the earlier thinking is, hey, I've already gotten a 3D in my engineering department. It's not enough, obviously. You need to be thinking about downstream. And then people say, well, so, I've invested heavily in my PLM environment. Doesn't that get me most of where I need to go? And the same answer is true, which is you need to be thinking further down the supply chain because while the PLM systems are, trying to address many of these issues, the slide in front of us here makes the assumption there's not a single brand, not a single solution, not a single underlying, as you call it, database or truth database. And the MBD thinking is we have to be able to attach and connect all of those sources.
Yep. Excellent, Dan.
Okay.
Well said.
All right. Are we ready for Marcus? I think we are. Marcus?
Okay. So if you move to the first slide, then the next slide, please.
Okay.
So first of all, I would like to give you a brief overview about Key Safety Systems, who we are, what we do. So we are a Tier 1 supplier for automotive safety components. Our main product portfolio is in the passive safety area with products such as airbags, steering wheels, seat belts. But we expanded also into the active safety area, means we are developing also products in the field of event protection, fire suppression, electronics, or, for example, autonomous technologies and others. On the next slide, you can see our global footprint. So we have 32 facilities in 14 countries across 4 continents. Our global headquarters is in Sterling Heights, Michigan, and I am based in our European headquarters in Raunheim, Germany, which is close to Frankfurt. Globally, we have around approximately 11,000 employees. Our customers are almost all major car companies around the globe. You can find our products in, let's say, all different type of cars, starting from the small city car, like the Fiat 500, for example, or up to super sport cars or exclusive super sport cars like Ferrari or Bugatti Veyron. So why did we start to investigate on MBD? As you could see on the first slide, our products are coming out of a very innovative area. So we also need to have innovative tools available to be able to develop them properly. So we are constantly checking about new trends and tools. So this is why we've seen already very early that the industry is moving into this direction. Aerospace is ahead of automotive here, but automotive is catching up pretty fast, which for my understanding is clear and understandable, because in my mind, MBD, so model-based definition, is the future in CAD. Currently, I'm always saying that we are at some sort of turning point in the industry, which is a bit comparable to 25 or 30 years ago, where CAD came into play and replaced all the drawing boards. So currently, I think model-based definition is coming into play and replacing all the 2D drafting stuff. So to investigate the usage of MBD for key safety, we've made several pilot projects which had the outcome that with MBD we will have significant improvements in quality and efficiency throughout the company, such as better visualization of designs. So for example, with a 3D file we are able to show things which are pretty difficult to show on 2D drawing. I will show you an example at the end of my presentation when I'm showing you a 3D PDF file. And also we reduce the, for example, the misunderstanding of designs due to overloaded drawings, or misunderstanding of the designs because people simply cannot read a drawing. So everybody is more in 3D right now. So we saw that we can auto-generate different reports, such as first article inspection reports. We can directly read the annotations or the tolerance information into tolerance analysis tools. So, for example, we are using this VSA here in Key Safety, but also 3DCS. You can directly read all the information. So we have the possibility to read all this information into the measurement devices. We can link it directly to DFMEAs and many more. So the more I'm dealing with MBD, the more possibilities I see. So this is a real pretty interesting topic. Okay, can you go to the next slide? So what were the major considerations which we had to make when we started thinking of implementing model-based definition in our company? So the first point was how does it fit into our company processes? For example, is the CAD software capable to fulfill all our process needs, or can we adapt it pretty easy? In Key Safety, for example, we have a dimension numbering system in which every dimension node or specification has a unique dimension number on the drawing. So this number is linked to the feature in all later revisions and is never changed. So it means if a feature has a number 45, for example, it will also be the number 45 in all later revisions. And if we delete this feature, number 45 is also deleted and will never be reused for this component or product anymore. This number, so this number 45 in that example, shall then also be extracted into the first article inspection report, or shall be linked to the DFMEAs. So CATIA and NX, the systems which we are using at Key Safety Systems, are not really capable of creating these direct links between the part number and the annotation easily. So we had to create our own macros in order to be able to do this. So this macros then can also extract our first article inspection report, and it keeps all the dimension numbers or the links to the dimension numbers directly to the 3D model. Another question was how can we check those 3D annotations? On a paper drawing, it's very easy. You can print the old revision and the new revision, lay them on your table side by side, and compare dimension by dimension. In a 3D model, which has 30 plus annotations, it becomes more and more difficult, more and more cumbersome. So, but luckily here are tools on the market which can do such checks automatically, and which, for example, also can check if a GD&T annotation makes sense or not. So, for example, a concentricity annotation on a surface does not make any sense, and these check tools are filtering those out. But the most important question in my mind is how can you make the data accessible or viewable to the downstream users? Inside the company as well outside the company for suppliers, for example. So not everybody has CATIA installed or NX installed, so you need to make the data viewable to everybody. So for our OEMs, it's a bit easier. As mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, they can dictate their suppliers which software they have to use, and we as a supplier do not have any other choice. For us, it's not really that easy to do that, so we need to have some sort of possibility to make the data available to also our suppliers. And the neutral format viewing file has to have certain, or has to fulfill certain requirements. So it has to be easy, and that the viewing software, or to retrieve the viewing software, or even better, the viewing software need to be installed already on every PC, or does not need any additional viewing software. So we have chosen in Key Safety after a long evaluation, the 3D PDF format, because Acrobat Reader is installed in almost every PC in the world. So we also auto-generate JT files, for example, but then you would need to make sure that your supplier has a good JT viewer. So during our rollout, we invested the most of the time in the choice of the downstream viewing file. So if your viewing file is not perfect, MBD will not be a success. So, but let's say for the cutting tools, etc., there we still supply native CAD files or neutral format files like STEP or JT, but for viewing purposes, there we use the 3D PDF. Can you go to the next slide, please? So what were the major obstacles we met during the rollout? So here I wrote it, need a change in the mindset. So this was the main obstacle we had. Human beings, I think especially engineers, seem to be change resistant. So they prefer to change the world around them before they start to change themselves. Especially with the older engineers, or let me better phrase it as more experienced engineers, they are used to the printed paper drawing on their desk. So if you try to convince them for the 3D master world, it's much more difficult than it is for younger engineers, which already live in a 3D world since quite a while with their video games, etc. But you can easily overcome this resistance of the 3D master file if you have a good downstream viewing file. So if the file is good, everybody is convinced that this is the future. So even people in our company which had very high resistance are now complaining why we are not converting our old projects into MBD as well. So the next obstacle we met was that due to the fact that MBD or MBE is a new initiative, the capabilities of the tools was not really sufficient to fit all our needs or need to be developed, and you need to implement workarounds. Like, for example, the macro I mentioned earlier, which we wrote to create our dimension numbers and to extract the reports. Another example is that CAD tools, or for example, CATIA does not have all drafting symbols available in 3D, like some surface finish symbols or some other GD&T symbols. So here we need to create also a workaround. But as MBD is becoming more and more a topic for the industry and the CAD software vendors, tools are changing quite a bit into the right direction. So for example, if you compare the MBD capability in CATIA between CATIA Rev 22 and Rev 24, there was a huge improvement. And so you need to adapt your best practices constantly also when you're upgrading your CAD software. So next slide, please. So what is the project status and the next steps for key safety systems? So we have successfully rolled out MBD globally for our passive safety business unit. The rollout for other business units is planned to follow within the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years. We are constantly collecting the feedback from our downstream users to adapt our internal methodologies where needed. And we create and update lessons learned constantly. There's also a collaboration with our customers and suppliers, for example, with vendors of measurement devices or tooling suppliers to evaluate their needs to improve our files. Here we are also in contact with people from different industries in order to see their needs and to adapt their best practices as, if they are applicable for us. And we are constantly assessing the tools on the market which might expedite our model-based enterprise approach. And here we do not just concentrate on the tools which we do not have in place. We also reevaluate constantly the tools on the market for functions which we are already capturing, such as the viewing tool, checking tools, or neutral format file opportunities for long-term archiving, and so on. Okay, next slide, please. And yeah, at last, before I will show you the MBD example which I brought to this webinar, I want to briefly sum up our real-life experience after more than 1 year with model-based definition. So the results we gained out of our pilot projects were proven in real life. We have significant quality and efficiency improvements in all key safety areas, which are dealing with, I call it CAD-based communication. So everybody who handled drawings in the past sees real benefits with MBD. No matter if it's in the engineering department, measurement lab, testing facility, production plant, and so on. The time savings we realized in many different areas in key safety are really noticeable. The feedback which we collected from, or which we got from all downstream users inside and outside from key safety was very positive. So, of course, you cannot just throw them a 3D PDF on the table and assume that they can work directly with it. So you need to give them a small sort of support, so for example, a hands-on support or a proper help documentation. So overall, for model-based definition, I have to say the more I'm dealing with it, the more I'm fascinated from it, and the more possibility I see for the future of KSS or the future of the industry in general. And the outlook that key safety might move into a real model-based engineering company or enterprise company makes me really excited. So last slide. Yeah, so here, do I have the mouse control? No. Here you can see a 3D PDF example, which I've chosen.
And
Dan,
you should have a little pop-up that says, yes, I'm taking mouse control. Did you have that?
No.
Let's try it again.
Oh, it worked a few minutes ago.
It did work a few minutes ago.
Now I've got the control.
Okay.
No,
while Mark
it's gone again.
You made a comment a moment ago about, you can't just throw a 3D PDF on somebody's desk. You might have to train them a little bit. Basically, Marcus, last night you threw this 3D PDF on my desk, and just for folks out in the attending audience, this is broadcasting from my desk in Florida. Marcus is controlling it in Germany, and there's nothing up our sleeves. This 3D PDF is just working and came right up on my machine without ever needing to do anything other than click on it like you would a PDF.
Yeah. So it might look now, or the operating might look clumsy, but there's quite a delay for me when I'm operating my mouse and computer. So it seems that electronic signals also need some time to cross the ocean.
Yes.
Here in this example, you can see a decorative cover from a steering wheel. So it's a regular PDF file, and as Dan mentioned, it can be opened with the Acrobat Reader, and it gives you the full Acrobat functionality, like, for instance, printing. So if you still stick on your paper thinking, you can print it out and lay the papers on your table. You can make comments, cut sections, do measurements, and so on. Here in our template, you can see here in the bottom right, we have our title block, like from the drawing, which contains some general information like part name, part number, general tolerances. So this information is completely extracted out of the 3D model, so there's no manual input needed. Here on the lower left or lower center, you've got some small thumbnails which allow you to switch between different views, and all views are still full 3D. As you can see, I can turn them around. And you can also maneuver from the side panel or from the tool panel in Acrobat Reader, but I think it's much easier to do it here with the thumbnails. The thing, or the reason why I've chosen this example is to show something which was very cumbersome to do with 2D drawings. So as this is a decorative piece on the steering wheel, there is a certain area which is painted and grained, and but the paint and the grain is not going all around the full complete component. So here in the 3D, we can easily highlight the painted and grained area with coloring the surfaces. So there is no discussion anymore about the area which we need to grain. So for example, if it's pretty difficult to maneuver.
Yeah, there's a time lag, folks. I can watch on the control panel here that, as this is being manipulated, not everybody's getting it right away. It can take 10 seconds to have each screen update.
So you can, so there's no discussion anymore if the painted section of this component goes around this radius, for example. You can easily see here, as this is yellow, that's the painted area. So we also have then a view available which simply just shows the paint and grained area. So there's this improved the communication with the supplier for RFQs and so on quite heavily. In the 3D model, you also have the possibility, as you know, to put all sorts of texts and tables inside. So That's why we have, for example, here a table with the specifications the part needs to fulfill, or we have some notes, some general notes on the components. So everything is inside the 3D model and also automatically then transferred into the 3D PDF file. So this is all I wanted to show right now. So Dan, you can carry on from here.
Okay.
That was awesome, Marcus.
Thank you, Marcus. That was really awesome. And again, when you're watching the recorded version, if you go to pick up the view on demand version of this, you'll see that that manipulation was probably a lot smoother than you saw on your screens at a distance, because as Marcus was manipulating, it was happening instantly in front of my eyes, even though it was taking a little time to distribute out down the way.
Yeah. So in case that you have any questions also after the webinar, you saw my contact details here. So I'm happy to answer also your questions after the webinar as well.
Thank you, Marcus.
You're welcome.
Right. Thank you, Marcus. I think that was an excellent real-world example, and really good luck with the MBE deployment and implementation, and really transforming into an MBE organization. So what we all saw today is a engineering release document. You know, one of the first, the use case number 1 marked over here in the on the slide. So with the same data set, really, and with some additional information, Marcus and team can produce the other 3 use cases as well. And by the way, these are the 4 use cases which we see commonly across the supply chain, which can, you know, how the supply chain can get benefited from MBE. So this is kind of the common thread which we see. So with the same data set, really with another recipe, so I'm going to just introduce the concept of recipe, where you have the same ingredients, and then you apply different recipes to create different, different outputs, really. And if you can think about Marcus and team taking that data set, and then, if they take the entire steering wheel and apply that process instructions to that steering wheel, then they can really create a work instruction. How do you assemble that? Likewise, Marcus spoke about the quality inspection processes. So you can really take the detailed bill of characteristics and marry those with your 3D data and create quality inspection process documents. And of course, the supplier collaboration, he did touch upon that as well, right? If they are able to communicate which areas of the part needs to be painted and grained, where the suppliers are able to provide exact quotations and really cut down that friction, right? And really benefit. It's a win-win situation, and they get the right quotation, they are able to procure the material from the suppliers faster. So with the same ingredients or the same source data, you can really create fit-for-purpose engineering and manufacturing documents. They are all derivative documents. Your data is still going to sit in your PLM repositories or wherever you have those today. You're just creating derivative documents which are in sync with your repositories and really communicating the right information to your supply chain. So we can go to the next slide, where we'll see some of the benefits, really. So if you think about it, if you had to create a drawing for the part which Marcus demonstrated, and really you're not going to have a single drawing that can define that entire definition. It's going to take a couple of drawing sheets to really explain that part, because it was a complex free-form part. So think about it, if you remove that creation of those number of drawings, and even if you add the time required to add those annotations to the 3D models, still you are looking up to 30% saving in time and cost. Likewise, you can see savings in tooling, you can see saving in assembly time, because you can do a lot of planning ahead of time, and you can do a lot of parallel processing in your business process. One of my favorites is reduction in supplier time, supplier and manufacturing response time. Think about it, if you're a supplier and if you're getting RFI requests from your customers, and you have some questions, and you go out to ask the questions, while your competitors just mark it up and mark up the previous quote and send it out to your to the same customer, there's quite likely that you might lose that bid. But it's not a win-win situation because your customer or your future customer is then paying more, and you don't have the business. So really, transforming into an MBA organization is also about creating these win-win situations. So with this, I guess Doug's going to walk us through some of the slides, and
we're getting very close to the end here, unfortunately. And we had planned to cover some of the initial questions that, for example, what methods organizations are using. Dan, I think what we should do here is just move
we should
save a little bit of time for a couple of questions.
Interesting to highlight 40% of the folks, 39% of the folks don't know, and 39% are doing non-secure, randomized copies, letting things loose on an email or in a Dropbox, as opposed to a more controlled strategy. What your company's interoperability strategy regarding engineering data, similar kind of lineup, mixture of formats, and still very much sort of CAD or native PLM centric as opposed to a more distributed strategy.
Yeah, that 47% employing a mixture of formats, that's the real world, and that's the challenge that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Right. And again, you can look at these in a little more detail if you have more time and a view on demand, if you like. What measures are in place within your organization ensure that both you and your customers are working with up-to-date data and that your IP is secure? I don't know, 41%. That's the state of the art. Or we rely on contractual or goodwill issues to control these things, as opposed to we've got a strategy in place. Should I keep going, Doug?
Yeah, keep going. We'll just move quickly, Dan.
How often does lack of access to supply chain data or format issues delay your performance? Often or occasionally, or over 50%. So, it's a real holding back. We've got to solve this problem so that productivity goes up around the industry. If I could change one thing about how we use supply chain data, I would. Quit my job and move to Desert Island. There is no hope. 17% were willing to share that with us, Doug. I think that's kind of fun.
Brave people.
Brave people. Find a more efficient and effective solutions to accurately manage multiple formats for customers. That's really where people want to go. They clearly know what the issues are, hoping to get them there. A number of people answered sort of other to these things. Confidentiality is an issue. Defense info is a security issue. Quality specification management of the nonconformities. Absolute reliability in conversion from CAD to other formats.
Reach out to Geometric and Anarch, and we'll address these questions for you directly.
Right. Okay. There you go, Doug.
Yeah, so in summary, we've taken you through some of the industry trends. We've talked about the impact of globalization and a number of other things. I hope that resonated. We've talked about the implications of that, whether you're an OEM, Tier 1 supplier, or any other supplier in the industry. We're all going to be impacted by this, and there are things that you can be doing about it. So obviously the message today is moving to the model-based enterprise with Anarch Core and with the Geometric solutions is that way forward. So just in closing, for those of you who are, if we go to the next slide, Dan, for those of you who are looking for more information, the one thing we would tell you, develop a game plan. Let us help you with that game plan. We're uniquely positioned to do that. Assess your organization's MBE readiness. Here's a website that you can go to for that model that we shared earlier, and a lot more very useful information you'll find there. And then lastly, reach out to us. Get in touch with us, and we would love to help you and look forward to doing that. So that's what we have. Dan, I don't know if we're going to have time for any questions that may have come in or not.
What I would say is thank you for folks who gave us an hour, and we've taken 61 minutes. And if you have to go, we understand, or pick up the view on demand. We have 3 or 4 questions, which I think might be worth sharing for those who want to stick around and have the time to do so. Brad asks, what is FTNA? Not familiar with that acronym.
Great question. FTNA is the CATIA terminology. FTNA stands for what?
Feature tolerance.
Functioning tolerance and annotations, it is.
If I weren't talking to 100 people, I would have remembered that. Thank you.
Okay.
That's the flavor of
several to-dos for Marcus's presentation. I'll just mention that. Daryl asks a question from Marcus. Was the table field data populated directly from CATIA specification tree property or parameter data, or was the text data in the view captured unassociated text nodes? You know, we're getting down into some nitty-gritty, but in that 3D PDF, Marcus, you know, where did some of those tables at the bottom come from?
Well, these are actually a few in the 3D model, or a capture in the 3D model, and we implemented here tables. So if you double-click on the table, Excel opens. You can manipulate this table with Excel, and you save it, and it's saved back into the 3D model again. So it's not that you need to have the original Excel sheet also linked to the CAD model, so we have it here directly inserted into the 3D model. And this is also a separate macro which we wrote for that.
Right, and just so we're clear here, I know Adobe, for example, has certain tools where you can use something like a form-fillable PDF to send data back to the original source. In the cases of like the 3D PDF that you showed us, that's not really set up to do that. It's not like somebody could somehow manipulate data in that table and adjust the master model unless you somehow maybe forcefully gave them permission to do so.
Dan, good question. There's a large array of customers, and progress in that area is very interesting. We have a lot of customers who, for example, if something changes in their ERP environment and they need to trigger a change and update these documents, they're able to do that. So where we're moving and what we're seeing is integration across what I called the white space earlier. So if the 3D model changes, of course, you're going to have to update things, but it isn't certainly limited to just that.
All right. So again, thank you. If you have to split, we understand, but I think there's 2 more that would be good to address if we want to take a couple more minutes. One is, how is this different than, say, JT or other visualization formats? Doesn't something like JT fulfill the same need as a 3D PDF, and then you throw HTML5 in the mix? Where is the mix, and why one versus the other, or all of the above?
Well, if I can answer here the experience what we had at Key Safety Systems. So, of course, you capture the same data with a JT file than you do with a 3D PDF file, but the 3D PDF file has the major advantage. You do not need to install a certain viewing software on your PC. So Acrobat is available on almost every PC in the world. So it means you just by simply double-clicking, you can open it and you have the full functionality. The free viewers for freeware viewers for JT files, for example, they are very limited in dimensioning or cutting sections and taking dimensions out of those sections. So with a 3D PDF, you can do it, and as I said, the major advantage is you do not need to install a separate software in order to understand or to open the file. Just simply double-click it on most PC of the world, and you're good to go.
It's a great point, Marcus. I would also advanced workflows that we've talked about today. If for example, you're working on process planning and you need to associate a process information or other attributes that might be in an MES environment or some other environment. JT doesn't tend to have the capability to do that. There are not enough pockets in the format, if you will, to be able to do those things. And so what we see is JT being an extremely effective tool up front in digital mock-up and review and comment arena, where PDF shines as well as downstream in the more advanced areas that we've talked about.
So you're saying that PDF is like a container, and in which you can really put all the information that you need, and then that can be consumed by the downstream consumer.
Well said, yes.
Right, and I think, in some ways the question goes back to that slide where we were showing all the different brands on various sides of the model, or, cook this recipe with these inputs. 3D PDF may be a great version of what we need right now. I don't know how many people expected HTML5 5 years ago, and who knows what's going to be here 5 years from now, let alone the underlying CAD brands or PLM brands or whatever. I think part of what MBE thinking really requires is we need to have our data flexible in such a way that whoever needs it, wherever they need it, however they need it, we can get it to them. And I think that's maybe the last setup for this last question. I'm going to switch back to Marcus's slide here. This last line here, the tools change constantly, so MBD methodologies need to be adapted. I think that's part of the real message here. This is not a slam dunk. I don't want to say that it's so overly difficult that you can't get there, but it's a process. If you think about how your supply chain works right now with all the many tentacles in and out of your information chain, why would you expect magically that a solution that is in progress is going to automatically handle all of those things? I guess the question that I want to put is that when working with somebody like Anarch or Geometric or whatever, where do you folks see, if there's a spectrum, on the one side of the spectrum is here's a complete solution, on the other side of the spectrum is this is a consulting project, this is an ongoing support project. Where's the state of the art from we have packages that work to we need to work with you to make it work?
So currently, I would say this is state of the art. When we began with our MBD initiative, so we checked a lot of viewing tools and also the Anarch tool, for example, and we've chosen the Anarch tool. But in the beginning, of course, let's say we were in a constant communication about our requirements. So Anarch was very proactive in changing their tool according to our requirements. So this was a very good partnership. So it's but now I think the tool is on a very good stage. But for sure, as you mentioned a little earlier, who knows where the industry is in a year from now or in 5 years from now. So probably, or there for sure needs to be more adjustments to the tools. So that's clear.
Okay. So yes, and talk about JT or 3D PDF. At some point, we're going to need our virtual reality containers, so we can just be in the midst of the augmented reality or the data set itself. Okay, Marcus, say your thank yous and goodbye, and then we'll have Ashish and Doug do the same thing.
Okay, so
thank you.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, sorry. So thank you that I was able to present our model-based definition approach here, or model-based enterprise approach here. So it was real interesting for me, and yeah, whenever you have questions, just give me a call.